Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Garrett had always considered himself a lucky man. He'd built his tech consulting firm from the ground up, turning an idea born in his garage into a thriving business that employed 43 people. The house he lived in, a sleek two-story home with natural stone finishes and large glass windows, had been bought with the sweat of years of hard work, long before he ever met Melissa. It was his sanctuary, his personal trophy, tangible proof that sacrifice and dedication paid off. When he married Melissa 4 years ago, he thought he'd finally completed the puzzle of his life. She was vibrant, sociable, always eager to host dinners for clients and business partners. She didn't work outside the home, preferring instead to manage the house and, as she often put it, support his career behind the scenes. Patrick, his business partner, had been essential to that success. They'd met in college, shared the same ambitious dreams, and built the company together. Patrick handled sales and strategic partnerships while Garrett focused on technical development and operations. Their division of responsibilities worked perfectly. They trusted each other completely. Patrick visited his house regularly, joined weekend barbecues, and was practically family. Melissa and Patrick chatted easily, exchanged jokes, and seemed to get along like in-laws who never quarreled. Garrett saw this as harmony, proof that he'd chosen well, both in his partner and his wife. Business trips were part of the routine. 2 or 3 times a month, Garrett flew to other cities, pitched proposals to major corporations, and closed deals that kept the company growing. Melissa never complained. She said she understood those absences were temporary, necessary, the price of success. She always sent him off with warm kisses and caring messages during his time away. There had never been any reason to suspect anything. No visible red flags. Or at least, Garrett hadn't noticed them, until his front neighbor, a retired man named Harold, rang his doorbell on a Tuesday afternoon. Harold was discreet and polite, the kind of neighbor who'd wave from a distance but rarely struck up long conversations. So Garrett was surprised to see him standing in the doorway, looking hesitant, his hands tucked into the pockets of the gray wool vest he always wore. Harold explained he was planning to install security cameras on his property. The neighborhood had seen a few recent break-ins, not serious, but enough to worry him. The issue was that, given his house's angle, the cameras would inevitably capture part of Garrett's driveway and front entrance. He wanted permission, wanted to avoid any misunderstanding. Garrett laughed, patted Harold on the shoulder, and said it wasn't a problem at all. Security mattered. If the cameras helped protect the neighborhood, great. Harold thanked him with visible relief and left. Garrett forgot about it entirely. 2 weeks passed. Garrett was returning from a 3-day trip, tired but satisfied after closing a significant contract with a logistics company. He parked in the garage, pulled his suitcase from the trunk, and walked inside. Melissa was in the kitchen making a snack, smiled when she saw him, and asked how the trip went. Everything was normal. Perfectly normal. It wasn't until the next day, when Harold showed up at his door again, that reality began to crumble. This time, the neighbor wasn't smiling. He held a small USB drive between his fingers and wore a grave, almost anguished expression. He said he needed to show Garrett something caught on his newly installed security footage. Something that had kept him awake all night, debating whether or not to get involved. They sat in the living room. Harold plugged the USB drive into Garrett's laptop and opened a series of video files. All were time-stamped at night, all from the past 15 days. The first video showed Garrett's garage lit only by the street lamp. The clock read 11:42 p.m. Then a far too familiar car entered the frame. It was Patrick's silver sedan. Garrett felt a strange pang in his chest, a twinge of confusion. Patrick parked in the garage as if it were his own home. The front door opened, and Melissa appeared, wearing a short robe Garrett recognized immediately. She smiled. Patrick smiled. They embraced in a way that left no doubt. It wasn't a friendly hug. It was lover's embrace. They walked inside together, and the door closed. Harold fast-forwarded to other clips. Same scene, different dates. Always during Garrett's business trips. Patrick arriving late at night, Melissa opening the door, the two of them going in together. In one video, Patrick didn't leave until 6 in the morning, glancing around before getting into his car and driving off. In another, Melissa followed him out barefoot and kissed him deeply before saying goodbye. Garrett watched it all in silence. He didn't feel immediate anger. He felt a hollow emptiness, as if someone had ripped out his insides and left only a shell. Harold mumbled an apology, saying he didn't know whether he should interfere but couldn't live with himself knowing and staying silent. Garrett thanked him in a mechanical voice and asked for a copy of the footage. Harold transferred everything to another USB drive he'd prepared just in case. After Harold left, Garrett sat alone in the living room for nearly an hour, watching and rewatching the videos. He counted the dates. Patrick had been in his home, with his wife, at least 7 times in 2 weeks. Probably more, before the cameras were installed. How long had this been going on? Months? Years? Garrett thought of all the barbecues, all the business gatherings where both Patrick and Melissa had been present, all the times he'd traveled trusting everything was safe at home. The betrayal was twofold. It wasn't just his wife. It was his best friend, his business partner, the man he trusted with half his company and with whom he shared the profits from every contract. The pain began to shift into something colder, more calculated. Garrett wasn't a man of emotional outbursts. He was a strategist. He'd built an entire company by planning every move with precision. So he'd plan this too. He grabbed his phone and sent a message to the entire team, calling a mandatory all-hands meeting for the next morning at 9 sharp. Reason: important announcement. No one questioned it. Garrett never scheduled all-hands meetings without serious cause. Then he spent the rest of the afternoon preparing. He connected his laptop to the conference room projector and tested the videos to ensure they'd play flawlessly. Every detail mattered. At dinner, Melissa asked about the meeting. Garrett lied with surprising ease, saying it was just a quarterly results presentation, nothing major. She seemed to believe him, changed the subject, and talked about a new recipe she wanted to try. Garrett chewed his food without tasting it. He looked at the woman sitting across from him and saw a stranger. 4 years of marriage, 4 years of lies. How many times had she slept with Patrick in the bed they shared? How many times had she looked him in the eye and lied about where she'd been, what she'd done, who she'd been with? The coldness in his chest grew. It wasn't anger. It was absolute determination. The next morning, Garrett arrived early at the office. The conference room was already set up. Employees trickled in, chatting about the mysterious meeting, speculating about new projects or possible organizational changes. Patrick arrived 15 minutes early, as always, shook Garrett's hand firmly, and greeted him with a confident smile. He asked what the meeting was about. Garrett smiled back and said it was a surprise, everyone needed to be present. Patrick shrugged, poured himself some coffee, and went to chat with colleagues. There was no visible tension. No suspicion. Patrick had no idea what was coming.